So, after the amazing cliffhanger that the last episode left us on, you would think that Class of '09 is going to keep punching you in the face. To some degrees, they do. And then they drop the ball on quite a few things. I'm going to give you my thoughts and reactions to the latest episode of Class of '09 right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 7 called Orders Night, which is a play on the fact that in the past, the cadets have to all get their orders of where they're going to get placed. That's their assignment. So they're going to get placed in different cities, different bureaus, different regions of the FBI. And this is sort of placing them there. It's a whole thing for that. As a whole, this episode isn't bad. I love the stuff that happens in the past and present. That's where the meat of this episode is. It's the future that sort of leaves me wanting more, especially after the finale of the last episode where like Murphy was murdered. We spend a lot of time just not remembering that until the end. And then it's a little too late and it's a bit anticlimactic as to what happens in the future. But we'll get there. Let's start with the past. So in the past, training comes to an end. Gerald and Drew are telling them like, we're done. Last training session is right here. And it's a simple session for the most part. Basically, you have to give yourself up to be pepper sprayed. And pepper sprayed, and then in that pepper spray, you have to continue fighting. You don't just give up after you pepper spray. You got to keep going. You got to keep going because we at the FBI, we never give up. We keep pushing through. We keep pushing through. And so they ask for volunteers. Who's going to be the first person up? And no one really moves except for Poet. Poet puts her hand up and is like, cool, I'll go. Something that Teo clocks. You see Teo sort of nod his head. He's like, yeah, of course, she's going to go first. She's always willing to go first. She gets sprayed in the eye, fights back, test over. She wins that one. Teo puts his hand up next, and Teo just starts questioning her like, hey, real quick, this seems odd to be the final test. Like, why is this the final test? Like, we've had tougher stuff before, and he's not wrong. That Hogan's Alley thing is much tougher than this. Like, why wasn't this a part of the combat training? To which Gerald is like, do you not want to do this? Like, no, I'll submit. I just need you to acknowledge that this is a test about submission, not about the actual combat piece of this. To which Gerald is like, I acknowledge that this is a submission test. And Teo's like, cool, that's all I wanted. Let's continue on. It's a fascinating way to sort of last test them. And because Teo was so ahead and always thinking ahead, he kind of called them out on their BS, whereas Poet was just willing to just jump into the fire and let's do it. Two great cadets, but two very different styles of achieving acknowledgement or achieving gaining something new out of this exercise. Then we see Orders Night, and the trainees get their assignments. Lennox gets put to DC, which he tells Poet, like, I didn't really want to go to DC. This is my father's stuff. I don't care about DC. DC is where you want to be. Poet gets put in San Diego, which is where Lennox wants to go. He's like, I wanted San Diego. That's where I wanted to go. He tells Poet, you're not going to San Diego. He just knows, like, you're not going to San Diego. And she's like, that's where my assignment says. I'm going to San Diego. He's like, you're not going there. He knows something. He knows who she is and what she's good at, that the FBI is going to have a different method, a different use of her than going to San Diego. Teo gets up and gets his assignment. He wants to go to Boston. He's like, yeah, you want to get to Boston so you can be next to your girl. Everybody sort of calls him out. It's cute to hear everybody sort of calling people out. Like, even when Poet gets her assignment, they're like, yeah, you want to go to DC with Lennox? Like, they know they're messing with each other. And there's some type of camaraderie there. Teo gets put to Billings, Massachusetts, which he is just not pleased with. And he's ready to pack and quit the FBI. He's like, I'm done. I don't want to. What is this? Is this like a punishment for me always asking questions, for me gaming the system and pushing the system? And Trevor's like, no, that's not it at all. I'm putting you in Billings because you don't like to have rules put upon you. You don't like to answer to anybody. There is no one to answer to in Billings. It is just you. You can run your entire operation there. You can get under the hood of things. It can just be you. Teo's like, I just met a girl and I like this girl a lot. This isn't going to work if we're in Billings. And Gerald's like, well, I can't tell you how to do that. Like, that part is new to me, and I can't tell you how to continue on beyond that. What I can say to you is that you are my best candidate. In my entire time of ever training people, you are the best that I've ever had. It would be really great for you to go to this assignment. We know that he eventually does go to the assignment, but it's clear that there was some type of reluctance to it. And he felt like this was a punishment for him always sort of questioning everything. He sort of gives him the legendary quote. He says, the best way to conquer the center is to conquer the edges first. And so that's what eventually gets him to say, all right, cool. Maybe I'll think outside the box and kind of go to Billings first, get some stuff done there, and then kind of move ahead. Poet and Ower are sort of talking about Lennox and how Lennox has another girl, and Poet's like, well, crap. And it's the first time that Poet sort of shows that she has had some type of emotion to Lennox, and is a little bit upset that he's moved on and found someone else when she's been so adamant to push him away. But before they can really get into that, Drew comes in, asks Ower to step out, and Drew lets Poet know, yeah, you're not going to San Diego. Lennox was right. We want to put you undercover. It's going to take a little bit more training, but we want to put you undercover in the FBI. We want you to do all our undercover missions. It's like, now it's going to be some sacrifice. It's going to be a lot of giving yourself up and giving up time. And Poet, without hesitation, like, no, I'm going to do it. I'll do it. It's like, okay, cool. This brings us to the present. And the present starts with Poet going through some of her files, her case files, and this. Remember, as she got injured, she's now sort of doing things on her own, the hidden cases, because she can't really go undercover with having a visible mark on her. So while she's looking through these files, she's using her laptop. She gets a trial for bureau assistants. It's this new trial for what Teo and Ower are kind of implementing. They send it to her first. Teo sends it to her first because he knows she's going to always jump at things. And so she accepts it, she takes it, and they give her an address. Teo is using her as the sort of the guinea pig for this, much to Ower not really feeling it. And Teo's like, and she's like, well, why are you choosing Poet? And Teo's like, well, the reason why we saw that in the past, she's always willing to jump in first. She's always willing to jump in first, head first. So this is who Poet is. So boom, that's where we go. Poet goes to the home. It's of James Rowe, I believe his name, who's the man in the system. As she arrives, Teo lets her know that, hey, if this is the guy, he's got about 16 murders on him. So tread lightly. She shows up and he's in a wheelchair. He's a paraplegic, but just from the waist down, he can still move his upper arms and limbs. Which normally, without this system, without feeling that you have sort of the upper hand to know that this is your guy, you will walk away. He's even said like he's had other cops come in and as they saw him in the wheelchair, they was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and just leave because they just assume there's no way that somebody in this state could actually do the murders that they're thinking. Poet pushes on though. She's like, nah, now that I know this is where we're at, I'm going to keep going. So she goes on. She sees a map on the couch that sort of shows the location of all the places that some of these murders have happened. Now, mind you, Poet has studied this from top to bottom. That's the difference between what a lot of other people have come in. They don't know this. They're just coming in and they're kind of going off of a clue. And they're like, nope, that's not it. But she studied this. She knows where these murders have happened. She knows specific cities. She knows all of these things. So in addition to the AI with her, she's sort of the perfect storm to get James Rowe caught red-handed. She goes to a glass case and sees a lot of trinkets that are bought at those like little 5 and 10 stores or those memorabilia stores in every city. And she asks, like, well, what was the reasoning for why you purchased these at these cities? Because I like them, is what he says. And she's like, well, I feel like it's more something because you want to remember something that occurred in the city. And so that's his way. You know, you've seen all these serial killer shows where these guys take a trinket. Sometimes it's a ribbon, sometimes it's something off of the person that they've harmed. This is his sort of totem for every person that he's killed. And she clocks it because she knows all the cities that these have happened in. Again, while the AI has helped him put them in this situation, it has taken a really good detective, an FBI agent, to sort of put some of these other pieces together. She continues to push on. She's like, hey, is that your truck? She's like, yeah, cool. It's like, can we go take a look at it? Now, mind you, at this point, Teo is already ready to in the ears. Like, we've got enough. We got him dead to rights. You don't have to bait him anymore. Poet ignores that and keeps going. She gets in the truck with him. She just should not have done. And at that point, it starts getting more and more heated to the point where she basically outright says, like, I know you did this. The truck is 16 inches above the ground, which she has said some of the bodies that have come to her have seemed to have come from a height, have dropped from a height of 16 inches that she just couldn't figure it if it was somebody from a car. Now she can see that, oh, this was, and I thought it was a, she's like, oh, I thought this person was disposing them off of me, but it's probably off of all, that's the only way that they can get rid of them because he is in a wheelchair. At which point they start fighting. It becomes a sort of a yin and yang. She pulls out a gun, he pulls out a bat, they start fighting to the point where Teo gets a message from the AI system saying, tell your agent to close your eyes, to close her eyes. She closes her eyes and they send out a flashbang that blinds him and gives her enough time for the police, the rest of the FBI agents, back up to come and arrest him. So on their first trial of using this system, it worked. Now, I think, again, it sort of helped that Poet was the person who did this because she studied this. But it worked. But it did put her in danger. And Or calls Teo out on it. It's like, hey, look, it worked. And she's like, it worked, but there were some pain points. Like there was some, you put some people in danger. To which Teo says, well, we will learn from this. And Or is like, but you won't pay for it. Like the AI won't pay for it. It's going to be the person who's ever in the situation is the person that pays for whatever danger we put people in. Like this still isn't safe. And Teo was like, we'll get it there. We'll get it there. He's very confident about this system. We then flash forward a little bit, still in the present, where Teo goes to the center of the board and kind of pounds his chest. He's putting out stats. He's like, "Yo, we've done this, we've killed this, we've done this. We are murdering this. We are ahead of our time with this system. But we've done this for all like physical crimes or redneck crimes or those smaller collar crimes. Let's go after the banks. Let's go after the white collar crimes. Let's go after that type of stuff." And the senator's like, well, hold on, wait. We start getting real dicey. We start messing with those folks. And he's like, yeah, I know. But I think it's a shame how with all of these crimes where people lose their money or whatnot, and the banks and people, whoever's at the top, feels protected. They are just completely on cloud nine. I don't think anything can happen to them. We want to show them that they can be touched. To which senator is kind of like, all right, cool. You get one. I'm going to give you one bank. Go after that one bank. If it works, we'll see. But we're going to go through this one bank with a trial. So then we see Teo show up to a bank for the first test on Wall Street. That's where he wants to go after. He wants to go after Wall Street. He goes there and he kind of shows up and he's like, you're not even in finance. And they're belittling him to a point where you can see why Teo continues to push on like this. They don't think someone who looks like him, a black man, should be in this situation, should be dealing with this. They actually even say, hey, maybe we should be talking to him, who's speaking about the white officer. They don't think he is smart enough to understand the things that they are doing. To which Teo puts on the show. He puts on a clinic and shows them that he knows everything that's happening in that place. And then he has the AI send them all phones about the evidence that he has about how they've been hiding money and using it inappropriately, and how this is basically a laundry scheme. And then he gets a note that's saying, hey, I just got a note that you wanted to clear a chopper off of the helipad at the top. That is something that people who want to escape want to do. So he's just calling them out on their BS, and they kind of realize that they're dead to rights. So he's got them. It worked. He's now going after white collar crimes. He then goes back to the controls, not even the control system, the electronic room where all the towers are for the AI to speak with Amos. He's like, you got the banks. Now what's next? Politicians. So this lets me know that whomever is in the future trying to mess with him, he's pissed off the wrong people. When you go after the rednecks, the blue collar folks, those people, the simple crimes, if you will, more so the murder crimes, you're fine. When you start messing with people's money and politicians, you're going to create enemies. So I don't know who is the enemy, but you can tell that he has put himself in a situation where this system is now being used against the people who they were probably funding this, and it's going to come back to bite them in the ass. Even so, it does so in the present. Now, before we get to the last part with Teo, Poet does come in to sort of build a team to continue this fight, and runs into Or, who invites her to stay at her place while she kind of comes back, gets relocated back to DC, and sort of can get her bearings, and she does. After a dinner that they have overnight, Teo goes home to his house and is still with his wife at this point, with V. Goes up, gets some sleep, and someone breaks in. Now he gets up. I thought originally he was getting up because he heard or felt a disturbance. He felt annoyed, like something happened, but he just wanted to get up and get water. It could be both. It could be his sixth sense come kicking in, and then he went down to get water. Everything seemed on the up and up. He goes back upstairs and goes to his bathroom and gets attacked. And before he gets attacked and stabbed, and before V can get up to come help him, he locks the door so she can stay out of this. And then it's just a full on battle that occurs between these two people. The man um, has his face covered, so we can't see who it is. But there's a battle that happens. Eventually, Teo gets the upper hand on him after kind of asking him while he's choking him out, "Who sent you? Who sent you?" To which point, I immediately realized, like, oh, V didn't separate him because of his obsession. Yeah, that probably would have done them in. But it feels like, and we learn this in the back end on the future, that Teo kind of pushed her away for safety. Like, he's going to continue this run. He's like, I'm going to keep going after people. I'm going to keep going after the politician. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing that. What I'm doing it is going to cause a harm to me. I don't care if they come after me, but I can't have them come after you. So it feels like he pushed her away for that. So then we get to the future, way at the tail end of this episode. Remember Murphy died? Yeah, that's the thing that happened in that last episode that we don't really touch base on until the back end of this one. The rest of the crew are at a funeral. Lennox, Ower, and Poet, and then Teo's off to sort of the side. They go up to him, and he's like, well, you guys have done all you can do from this point. I got to take it from here. I'm up. And what happens next? Maybe some of the laziest writing I've seen in quite some time. Because I don't see how else Teo's smart enough to understand that this was going to happen the way that it did. And it felt just like, oh, that's very anticlimactic for us to kind of do all of this stuff and then just show Teo just walking in. But what happens is Teo goes to his office. He grabs the control panel or tablet from his secure spot in his office, and he goes to the control room with the AI. And he starts to shut it down, wants to shut it down. Warren, who has sort of been at the center side the entire time in the present, and now he's old enough to sort of be number two, if you will, in the future. Warren comes in and says, what are you doing? He's like, I'm shutting it down. He's like, well, you don't have the authority to shut it down. He's like, well, I turned it on. I'm going to turn it off. To which point, Warren, there have been rules put into place that Warren reminds him of. It's like, hey, shutting down the system now requires a consensus. If you are attempting to shut it down without that consensus, that is considered breaking the law. Teo doesn't care, runs it off, puts the code in, throws it at Warren, and kind of just watches as he wants to see what he has done. Again, I don't see how he saw this going any other way, but the system ignores the command basically and just focuses on him and says that he is the prime suspect, number one. We then see in a just really weird marriage proposal between Lennox and Poet, which is fitting for them. They've been going this will they, won't they all this time. He's like, look, I just want to be with you. I feel like we missed our chance before. F it, will you marry me? He's like, F it, will you marry me? Yeah, I will. That's a weird way to do it, but yes, I will do that. While they are having that odd proposal, they see the TV screen that shows that Teo was fired from the FBI. No shit. Surprising is just that and not killed, but I think it would have been too quick to have him be demoted and fired. Like somebody would have questioned things if we just killed him. So they fire him. The newscast is like, hey, we fired him right after extensions had been talked about for him to be extended as the head of the FBI. He's been fired. So then we find him in a bar or a diner that Vivian, his ex-wife, would know him from. So she goes to go see him. He's there drinking. Mind you, we learned in this that Teo was not a drinker. He never drank before. But he's got a good Japanese whiskey from '09, the year that he graduated, and he's sitting there sort of contemplating his thoughts and what to do next. He's at this diner because he says this is the only place that even with the world burning around them, I can come in and get some anonymity. Like no one's going to bother me or ask questions here. This is just where I can come. So she comes and they sit and they talk. And this is where you sort of learn that he pushed her away to kind of save her. And she's like, I never went to somebody else because there's nobody else like you. And so they still have a love for each other. She says, hey, I know you don't have a place. Come stay with me. And he's like, this is going to be weird. I don't know if we can pick up back where we were before, and they both decide that they're willing to try. So, yay, love. It's a very anticlimactic ending off of the sort of thing that we got last week with Murphy. I wish there was, as smart as Teo has been proven to be in this series. Always asking questions, always doing things. The fact that he just thought he was going to walk into the FBI and be able to just shut it down and it work is mind boggling. Like now, I don't know if he's smart enough to know that maybe he put in some back end code that maybe, yes, he knew this was going to fall on him, but he put in some sort of alienware or some type of malware to sort of talk to it and do something in the future, because this just didn't make sense for who we have already been established to Teo to be. So I think he may have put something else in place that allows him maybe some control outside of having to be in there. Who knows? But it just seems so unlike anything that he would have done. We then see Warren is now the new commander. He goes into all the towers with all the AI doing their digital stuff. It's like, nope, I'm in charge of the AI. Teo is no longer the head of the FBI. And that's how the episode ends. I love the stuff in the past and the present. I think showing them getting their orders was cool. Sort of seeing how they bucked against that, how they were kind of tricking the system still to show, like, yep, we're going to put you in San Diego, but we're really tug, we're putting you undercover. The present, however, was the sweet spot of this episode. I think seeing Poet go to the house, seeing the AI work with an actual detective in place for the first time, beautiful. Seeing how it still got her into trouble. She still went in a little too head first. That all worked. Seeing the attack on her home, those were the sweet spots of this episode. Past and present, no problems. Future is the one that left me wanting more, mainly because we had built Murphy going up to the senator, going back to the senator up so much, and he just gets murdered, and kind of just like, well, cool, Teo, you got this from here. It doesn't feel like we're getting enough of a send off or coming together of what that all means. Still like it. Not my favorite episode. The last two were, but I'm still invested. I'm still care enough. I'm just a little bit disappointed in how this happened. But I think there's a sort of a Trojan horse that I'm hoping that Teo was smart enough to put sort of Trojan horse into the system to sort of at least backdoor control of the AI. But what did you guys think about this episode of Class of '09? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also here in YouTube. The shorter versions are here on YouTube. You can find that wherever podcasts are played. Like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.